Mike's on.
Thanks to Keith Hernandez. His book comes out on Tuesday, so check that out. Now, I didn't want to have him on. I didn't want to, beat on him when the Red Sox were in town. So I waited till the Red Sox left town, and they at least skulked out with a win last night, so he could at least save a little face with that cheap home run that gave them a victory last night, because otherwise it would have been 3 straight. He would have been a sulking guy here today instead of being the cheerful Bill Simmons that we expect. Bill, what's going on?
First of all, the Yankees lead the league in cheap home runs. You think they're a pop
you got them back last night with that bomb. I'll tell you that now. You got him back with that bomb he hit last night.
I've been so excited. So first of all, I was in Boston because I went back for Game 5, but the rivalry's back. Like you and I have talked about.
Oh, I can't wait! Absolutely. Yes.
From a star power standpoint, it feels like it's back. Like the way Mookie Betts is playing and Martinez, some of the pitchers, and then the Stanton Judge combo.
And keep the iPad away from Price, okay? If you can, keep the iPad away from him, okay?
Well, we'd already written off Price, but when the Yankees fans were standing up to him, the 2-strike, wanting the 3rd strike for the strikeout, it really did feel like Yankee Stadium. Like watching on TV, I couldn't tell the difference between the old and new stadium. It
was fun. It was great. Watching Ramirez hit the homers and then the comeback the other night. Really good baseball. It's going to be a fun. As I said, opening up today, we're a fourth of the way through the season, almost a couple of days, and both teams are sitting there with 26-11, both playing 700 baseball. Sets up for a wonderful summer. It really does.
My buddy Jacko was on my podcast the other day. He was saying he couldn't remember a season where you already kind of know what the playoffs are going to be. It's going to be either the Red Sox and Yankees, and then the other one will get the wild card. It'll be
Cleveland and Houston,
the Angels and Astros and Cleveland.
Yep.
And that's it. That's the playoffs unless the Mariners get hot.
That's it. No, that's it. That's
over.
it. I totally agree. The only one that's even flimsy is the Angels. But let's get to some NBA because we got a lot to cover. I'm sure you saw the Barkley-Shaq argument, right?
Yes.
And then, of course, we know what happened to Casey here. Do you think it was more a case of them just siding with DeRozan, or more a case of we can't have you win 59 games and lose 4 straight and lose in the second round for the second straight year? We have to make a change, even though we owe you $6.5 million. Which one do you come down on?
Well, I think it's multi-part. You have normally NBA coaches, it's about a 6 or 7 year run, and I think unless it's somebody like Popovich or Stevens or Spoelstra, it's probably time to change. It's almost like having the air conditioning filter in your house.
But they won 59 games this year.
I know, but it was such an embarrassing sweep.
It was.
And they really, to be honest, they lost that series in March when they put up 79 on Cleveland in the first half on ESPN on a Friday night or a Wednesday night, I can't remember. And then LeBron just came back and single-handedly won the game, and it became clear, like, oh, yeah, you guys are never going to beat LeBron.
Never. I couldn't believe people were picking them. Plus, they were favored, such a big favorite in the series. I said, no way.
I never do this, but I did a tweet before the series where I was like, LeBron owns the Raptors and plus 160. Like, I just put all these dollar signs on it.
It was ridiculous. I said I picked them in 5 games. There's no way. I was talking to I said no chance. And I tell you, everyone's now picking them in this series, Cleveland, and they're really underrating the Celtics. This series is going to be, I think, a classic. I think it's going to be very long, and I think it could go either way because they have some answers. Now, listen, he's going to get his points. We know that. But they have defenders, and they have a way of playing where they at least can compete. They're going to be very tough in this series. The one thing is, do they have a guy in these 90-90 games who will make a shot late? That's going to be the key for them.
Yeah, I have a lot of thoughts on this. I wanted to finish one Casey thing because I wanted to get your thoughts.
Go ahead.
So Game 3, he benches DeRozan down the stretch, and they come back.
Right.
I think when you do something like that to your best player, who I think was one of the 10 best players in the league this year, at that point, it's a Hail Mary, and if it falls incomplete, you're done. And if you catch it, maybe you get some second life. We saw this 3 years ago with James Harden and Kevin McHale in the Clippers game, where they were down 3-2. They're getting blown out. And McHale's like, I'm going to get fired if I lose this game anyway. And he benched Harden. The bench guys brought them back. Harden got re-engaged, and then they ended up winning the series in 7. This was Casey's version of that, and if it doesn't work, it's either you or the star that's leaving. And DeRozan makes $27 million a year. He's second-team All-NBA, and at that point, it's one or the other. You're not going to work that out.
He's not good enough for that, though. You see, he doesn't deserve that kind of treatment. He's not on that level. There are guys on that level, absolutely, but he's not on that level. See, I don't think he deserves to be treated that way. But
if you can't beat LeBron, you have to fix the coach and your 2 best players. You can't bring back the same 3. You just can't. You have to. Then either trade Lowry, trade DeRozan. Maybe they plan on doing that too.
Hey, maybe LeBron will go west. But the Celtics are going to be the guys you have to worry about next year, as we all know.
Yeah. And the Sixers.
Yes, and the Sixers are a year away. Listen, we knew they were. We talked about it when the playoffs started. They're just a year away. They just were too young. We knew they were too young.
You won that argument.
Yeah, they were too young. Yes,
and yes, you could feel it in that series. They blew Game 2. They completely blew it. They're up 22.
Yep.
Game 3, they're up 5 in overtime. They blow that. And then the guy's on the line for the game-winning 3 in regulation. And then I went to Game 5. First of all, Redick hits the 3 with a minute left. The game's over, but he missed it. And they were up 4 with 90 seconds left and just could not make a play. And they didn't have that one guy who kind of knew what they're doing.
And
the coach killed them. Coach ran out of timeouts.
The coach had a tough series. The coach had a very, very tough series. And especially against Stevens, he had a very tough series. And Stevens is so good. He's so good. He is so good. And Tatum is a star. He is a star in the making. He is going to be people have really undersold how good he's going to be. He's going to be a really terrific player.
Well, I think people get it now because they didn't for a while. And I was saying that I thought I was saying the whole year because I'm watching this whole season. It's just been blown away by the stuff he's been doing. And then he hit the rookie wall, and then he rallied back.
And his consistency in the playoffs has been unbelievable. Unbelievable,
yeah.
Yes.
But I thought he was Pierce 2.0, basically. Like kind of a taller, more accomplished Pierce who had more ways to score. But what he's done the last 7 games, I mean, listen to this. You'll love this. So he played 966 minutes last year at Duke. He played 29 games. This year, playoffs and regular season combined, is at 92 games. Is at almost 2,900 minutes. And if he plays even 150 minutes in this series, he becomes one of 5 rookies ever in the history of the league to play 600 minutes in the playoffs. And the other ones are like Alvin Adams, Magic Johnson, Jack Sikma, people like that.
Yep.
This is not something that happened.
No.
He became their go-to.
Also, his scoring in the playoffs, it's Larry Bird-like. I mean, every game.
He became go-to-like. And the thing is, he's not even shooting that well. I think he's shooting 31% for the playoffs, but during the season, he was over 40. I'm talking about from 3. And I actually feel like he could go up a level potentially. But
I will be fascinated by this series, and of course, of talking with Bill Simmons. I will be fascinated to see how Stevens approaches this defensively, because clearly he can take a couple of different tacks here. It'll be fascinating to see which way he plays it.
Right, and what he did with Philly, I think, is instructive for this. Right, Cleveland really figured themselves offensively. They re-engaged LeBron. They kind of just go into war with the guys who have been in the wars with them before.
That's it. They had to do that. They had to do that.
But defensively, they're still not that good.
No.
And defensively, the advanced metrics for them, even in the Toronto series, were not great. And I think if you saw what Stevens did in Game 5, so in Game 4, they went with shooters. They basically went with Embiid and 3 perimeter guys, and they just tried to shoot Boston out of the building. And then in Game 5, Stevens was like, all right, if you're playing Redick and Bellinelli and McConnell, all these guys, we're just going to post them up. We're going to punish you down low. We're going to take advantage of whoever your worst defensive player is, and we're going to torture this guy. And that's what they did, and that was one of the reasons they won the game. And I think with Cleveland, Love and Kyle Korver are really subpar bad defensive players.
No question.
And LeBron gets lazy on D because he rests on defense.
He has to now. You got to do it somewhere. He has to. He's not a baby anymore. He's got to take his minutes on defense now. They need him so much on offense. He has got to take a couple of minutes rest on defense. Otherwise, you got to put him on the bench for a couple of minutes, which you can't do.
Right. And I think what Stevens does, he knows how to adjust, not just during the games, but during the course of the series better than anybody. Steve Kerr, we were talking about this recently, and Steve Kerr was saying, the thing that people don't realize about playoff basketball coaching is just that you have to constantly be moving. It's almost like football. It's like how Belichick does one thing for the first half and the other thing
you
for
have
the
to
second
adjust.
half.
You have to adjust. And you got to save
do
things, too. You got to save things.
Yes. So Stevens, as the series will go along, he'll do one thing in game one, then he'll flip it in game two. Whereas Cleveland, I think they are who they are. It's not like they're going to be like, game two, we're doing this. Here's our plan for game three. It's like they have.
But their game is simple. We know what their game is. The question is, how are you going to defend him? How are you going to attack him? That's really what it's about. It's about one player. That's all it's about. We all know what he has to do.
Is this the best run of his career?
Yes.
And is he now hitting that MJ level that MJ hit in 97, 98, where he's just so confident?
Yes, but he can't take it. But it can't end in a championship, though, which is the sad part, because there's going to be knuckleheads, and I've been saying this for weeks now. If he drives them to the finals, there's going to be knuckleheads who say, oh, listen, because let's be honest, when he gets to the finals, if he does, and listen, he'll probably get him through in a very long series, but the bottom line is this. If he gets there, when he gets there, he looks at the second best player in the sport, whose numbers are going to be almost like his in Durant, and then the next three best players are on that team. So how are you supposed to compete with that?
You're looking at one of the all-time best offenses against a bad defense.
Right, and you're looking at Durant, who is the only guy who really can even approach him in terms of stature and being able to play against him is Durant. That's the only guy.
So I agree with you that this Celtics-Cavs series is going to be long.
I
think
long, and the games are going to be in the 90s. Games are going to be in the 90s. They're going to be one-shot games. They're going to be in the 90s, and it's going to be a 6 or 7 game series.
And Boston has matched up with Cleveland pretty well the last 4 games in the regular season, stuff like that. They don't really have, LeBron obviously is ridiculous. But other than that, there's not really guys on that team that are the type of guys that give the Celtics a problem. And they also have home court, which I think you can't understate that. The Celtics are 7-0 at home. They have a young team. They get a ton of energy from the crowd.
Absolutely.
I felt it on Wednesday night. That crowd is worth 10 points.
And they have guys who can defend. They have guys who can defend.
Defensive team. They really are an excellent defensive team.
Let's be honest. If Indiana knew what they were doing, they could have won that series.
Right. And think about that. Indiana didn't have home court. They had a far inferior coach, and they weren't as good defensively.
But they had guys who could bother LeBron a little bit. And that's the thing. And Toronto had none. And now and Celtics do. They have guys that can be annoying here in the series.
Yeah. Well, I can't. Here's the part where you're going to laugh at me, but
good.
Shane Larkin going out is actually bad for the Celtics. And I can't believe I'm saying that because he was like their 5th or 6th guard heading into the season. But they've passed the point now where they just don't have enough players. They played 7 in the Sixers game 5. They're actually going to need Greg Monroe, Semi Ojeleye, people who have not been playing consistently in these playoffs are going to have to get 20 to 25
But here's the thing, Bill. The other guys are not taxed in this series by the Cleveland players. They're not taxed. It's about one guy. It's about how you attack him. The other guys don't tax anybody. You could play anybody on their bench.
I hope you're right. Well, listen.
I think it's going to be a very long series. Now, listen, I'm going to pick LeBron just because he's LeBron, but I think it's going to be a hard 6, maybe 7. I would not be surprised if it's 7 games. I think it will absolutely be 6. I will not be surprised if it's 7. And I'm only picking the LeBron because he's there, because he's on such a roll. But I think if the Celtics won, I would not be surprised in the least. I didn't think Toronto had a chance in hell of winning 2 games. I think this series could go 7, and I think the Celtics can win.
What about this bet? It's plus 110 for this to be a 7-game series.
I think there's it could go. I tell you something. It could go in 6, but it absolutely is 6 or 7. The only problem with the way the games shake out, you're looking at the more likely 6. That's the only problem.
The last time I talked to you in radio podcast format, you swore to me that the Giants were going to take Sam Darnold if he was there at number 2.
Yes, I did. I thought they would. I thought they would.
And they gave him to the Jets.
I thought they would. You know what?
Last 7 years.
I thought they would. When we did that, it was a couple of weeks before, and I really thought they would. I thought all along, and I had heard the only guy that they were interested in was Donald. And then you heard them say later that they never were getting off the running back. I thought that was the only guy that couldn't. I knew they didn't have any interest in the other quarterbacks, but I thought if Cleveland actually went with Mayfield, I thought they were going to have a hard decision. And they said afterwards that it wasn't a very hard decision, that they were on the running back the whole time. I thought Donald would entice them because I knew that was the only guy they liked. I know that Sean Payton had said also he thought Donald was the only guy who was of the highest quality of these quarterbacks. I thought I was led to believe the Giants thought the same way. And you know what? This one could be one where down the road, short term, it could definitely play to Eli's strength in Barkley. Long term, they might regret this if he turns out to be what he's supposed to be. So I thought Donald was the one guy that could entice him, and it turns out they weren't going to move off the running back.
I thought they should have ended up with a quarterback there.
Well, they only like one, from my understanding. That was the only one they were going to think about was Donald, was my understanding. And then they wouldn't even move for him. They liked Barkley that much. So we'll see how it works out. Very little, not often. No, and I'll tell you, it could. Listen, I don't know if the Giants are going to screw. Barkley's going to be good, so I don't know if the Giants are going to look like it has screwed up. But 4 years from now, if Eli's retired and the Giants haven't put up a third Super Bowl with him, and the Giants are on their fifth quarterback 5 years from now, and Donald's a star, there will be a lot of revisionist history about how the Giants blew it. So that will be true. And I am a big Sam Darnold guy. I think he's going to be the real deal. I think he's going to be here a long time. I think he's going to be a terrific quarterback. So he's the only one I like to the quarterbacks. And I thought that would entice the Giants. And as it turned out, it did not entice them. They said afterwards that they were not even that close, although they had kind of put out smoke screens that they were thinking of Donald. But in truth, they said they never really considered it.
Well, let me ask you this. How good does Barkley have to be to justify that pick if Darnold...
Barkley has to be a legitimate star.
But does he have to be like LaDainian Tomlinson?
No, he has to be a guy who makes them a winner, where he's a legitimate, big-time difference maker at running back. A difference maker at running back.
So like first 5 years of Adrian Peterson's career?
Like first 5 years, you're talking about... I don't care so much about yardage. I care about touchdowns. Whether he gets them on receptions or gets them as a running back, he's got to be a guy who's double digits in touchdowns every year.
Does he have to be as good as Le'Veon Bell?
I'd say not. I'd say, how about 9/10?
Okay, so you take 9/10 of Le'Veon Bell from that pick.
Yes.
But the worst-case scenario is Sam Darnold or Rosen, or even worst-case scenario is if Jackson becomes the best guy. Because you could have conceivably taken the running back and then traded up to the 30.
Yeah, I don't think they ever... Listen, they could have clearly taken Donald, traded up, and taken Sonny Michel, who I love, and I think could actually be a star back if his knee holds up.
Yes.
Okay? They could have done that, but they would not have gotten Hernandez on the second round, and I think he will be a Pro Bowl offensive lineman. So I think that's what they were looking at. They were looking at both players. They were looking at Donald. They were looking at the running back and the offensive lineman who they loved, looking at both of them as a tandem versus taking the quarterback.
So the Francesa team power rankings: Yankees clear first, Giants clear second, and then the Knicks a distant sad third.
In what way?
Just like who you're most excited about next 5 years.
Oh, Yankees 1, Giants 2.
Oh, Rangers have to be 3.
No, 3 is the Jets, because I think actually Donald's going to be good.
Wow, Jets 3.
Yes. I don't know. I don't know if. Listen, I liked Fizdale when I talked to him the other day. I don't really know. I didn't know Fizdale before this. I talked to him the other day, and I liked him. I liked what he said, but I think they still have a tremendous amount of work to do.
Well, I don't know if you realize this. Oh, wait, everyone in New York has been talking about this for months, but the passing on Donovan Mitchell now in retrospect is pretty rough.
But you know what? They weren't the only one, though, either,
No, they weren't. But they took another point guard over him.
Listen, I agree, but I can't make that. I can't knock them on that because I wasn't one who was yelling about him. So if I was yelling about him, then I'd be screaming about it. But I wasn't. I didn't know he was going to be that good.
I started to hear the 5 days before the draft that he had a chance to go as high as 7, and that he was the sleeper.
So you heard good things about. I never heard anything good about him. Yeah. You heard good things about him?
Yeah, it was a lot of stuff about. First of all, the Louisville guys. I think the last few years have actually, have gone into the league and been able to handle their business. But I think he's like the son of a baseball player. I think he's just mature. And I think there was a feeling like when he got to the pros,
he turned out to be great.
Yeah, I mean, you look at that draft, and just having Tatum and Mitchell alone in that draft is an above-average draft.
Yes.
And there's like 5 other guys that, I think De'Aaron Fox is going to be really good. I think Markkanen's going to be really good.
I love Fox.
I love Fox. On Fultz, even though Fultz is going to get traded, I think, this summer. It's going to be, I think, one of the all-time drafts. I can't say I knew about him because I didn't know he would be this good. But listen, everyone's going to look bad who didn't pick him right now. There's no question. All right, let's get to a couple of things here right now. Celtics, Cavs. Give me a prediction. Who wins? I think it
with your head, not your heart. Who wins?
This is a weird pick, but at gunpoint, like my life depended on it, I would say Cavs in 7.
Okay. And that's
like
fair.
A heartbreaking, very almost did it right there, and we pull out one of the all-time great LeBron performances.
You know what? I think
have to pull it by.
I think that's what you're looking at here. If Cleveland, if the game's set up the right way, I would have picked Cleveland in 7. But since I can't see them losing Game 6 if they're up. So to me, you're looking at. It'll go 6. It could go 7. Even if it goes 7, I think LeBron can win Game 7. But I'm going to go Cleveland in the tightest of series. I'm picking them, but I think Boston has an absolute chance. Now, does Houston, in your mind, have? I don't think they have any chance. Do you think they have any chance?
I don't think home court matters as much for them.
I don't care about home court. I agree, but do you think Houston can win the series? Yeah,
because of the math, because of the way they play basketball, it might be 2-2 after 4 games, and in Game 5 they win, and then they go to Golden State Game 6 and they make 22 threes and they win. So, in my opinion, even though the Warriors are by far the most talented team, it's still a math thing, and it's still you just don't know game to game. Think back 3 years ago, OKC Golden State. OKC's up 3-2 at home, ready to clinch, and Klay Thompson made 11 threes.
I don't believe you think that. If I put a gun to your head, you think Golden State's winning.
Oh, I think Golden State's going to win in 5 or 6. But
yeah, I think so too.
I think Houston is dangerous to bet against and pick against game to game, series to series because of their ability to shoot.
You have Houston still decorated with players who still have so much to prove. And again, you have, and I don't like Golden State. I really don't like them. I want to see them lose. And I don't want to see them play LeBron again and go through all that nonsense. So I really don't want that series. So from that standpoint, I almost want to send the Celtics just because I don't want to see it go on with LeBron again because he can't win. If he thought he could win, I would like to do it, but he can't win. So with that being the case, I think that Golden State doesn't like what they're hearing about Houston, which I think will motivate them, and I think they do need to be motivated sometimes because I think they just know how good they are and they get lethargic about it. I'm going to go 6 max, and I wouldn't be surprised by 5.
I'll tell you this, though. If Boston somehow made the finals with everything that's happened to them and the team that they have, it would have to rank up there with, and I'm not just saying this because that's my favorite team.
Right.
There's just no real precedent for this. To make the finals without your 2 best guys to make the active payroll they have right now for all the guys on the team that are actually playing, it's like $65 million.
How excited are you about them for next year, though? How excited are you about them for next year? I mean, they are going to be tremendous.
Yeah, and the thing is, Kyrie to Rozier is obviously a drop-off. It's not a catastrophe, but it's a clear drop-off. Kyrie's one of the best 9 players in the league. What really has hurt them is not having Hayward, like in these playoffs, because Marcus Morris and Semi Ojeleye averaged 39 minutes a game in the Sixers series, and they shot like 30%. If you just take Gordon Hayward and give him those minutes, the Celtics are like 8 points better. So when you think about next year, if they can bring everybody back, and Brown and Tatum just going to grad school basically for what to do during the playoff series, and then what they have in Tatum now, which is, I would say, one of the better assets in the entire league.
We're, of course, talking with Bill Simmons. So you're picking Golden State and you're picking Cleveland gun to your head, but you think Boston has a chance.
Yeah, I think Boston.
I do. I think they have a legitimate chance, and I think these games are going to be very competitive.
And it's funny. I think Thompson is hugely important for Cleveland, who is somebody who they just given up on completely. They
incredibly important. Absolutely
they
incredibly.
Really need him in this series.
Yes.
They really need, one of J.R. Corver every game, and then game after game they need LeBron. The schedule's really strange for the series. They play Sunday and Tuesday, then they don't play again until Saturday, and then it goes Saturday, Monday, Wednesday. And if the Celtics can somehow win the first two, they're favored in the first one by like a point. But if they somehow could win the first two, and then you have this 4-day break, then I'd start having real ideas at that point. But it's just that LeBron has hit some level. Like it's hard to imagine any normal team.
No, it's going to be. That's it. He's just playing on such an incredible level. Let me ask you this: off this incredible year that he's had, which if I gave you a chance right now and you played the game. And I said, all right, Bill, this is the big game, and it's going to be the national game. Where does LeBron land? Where would you put the dot for next year? You can put it in Cleveland. You can put it anywhere you want. You can put it on Mars if all you want. Where would you put the dot right now, knowing nothing else about the rest of this year in the playoffs, not knowing anything else about anything? Where would you put the dot for next year?
I think if they make the finals, I think he stays.
So, but right now, today, where do you put the dot?
I would say Cleveland most likely, or the Lakers are the top two, are the co-favorites, and then Philly would be third. And then I would have San Antonio fourth. Okay. As a dark horse. But, the thing with Cleveland that's kind of an underrated wrinkle for them is they did get that pick from Boston, the Brooklyn pick. And odds are it's like the 9th pick in the draft, right?
Yep.
So, if LeBron says, hey, I'm going to stay, you can get somebody good with that pick. And there's going to be a lot of guys available, and they'd have to figure out like who the right fit is for them, but they have the chance to add another. So really you
don't think that bridge has been burned with him and the owner? You think it's salvageable?
I think anything's salvageable. Like they think about the decision. The owner wrote him like a breakup letter.
Right. So they have a weird relationship. They can somehow play through these things.
I've always felt like if he was going to leave, that Los Angeles made the most sense because, I wrote about this in February. LeBron's a narrative guy. All the decisions that he's made really since about 2010 have had the narrative. It's been narrative first, basketball situation second. I had David Griffin on my podcast the other day, and he was saying, like, for LeBron, he's now at the point in his career where he assumes anywhere he goes is an instant contender. So it's not like one of those things where it's like, I need help, I got to go here.
No, I think you're right about that.
I'm there.
But he'd like it to be easier lifting. He had to play every game this year, and that's why he was the MVP, which I'm sure you've come to grips with by now, right, on that MVP thing.
No, but he wasn't. We argued about this a few weeks ago. He wasn't the MVP because the regular season MVP is for those 82 games.
Oh, stop it.
If you want to have a who's the most talented player in the league award.
Well, we know that, but he also gave the big effort this year, though, which you're seeing carrying on to the playoffs. He lifted his team. His team would have won 20 games without him.
No.
They're awful. They're awful.
They have the second highest payroll in the league.
Yeah, forget that, though. They're terrible. You know how bad they are.
They have good players.
Oh, stop.
Kevin Love is a good basketball player.
Oh,
Tristan
God.
Thompson was the 4th pick of the draft. People are making it seem like he's playing with like the Hickory Hide.
I wish the Yankees would have won last night. I would have given you such heck today. I can't believe you got one on that cheap homer last night. So
listen.
That's a save face homer for Simmons. That's what that was. That was a save face home run. I wouldn't be able to fine you today if they didn't win that game.
First of all, I'm a veteran baseball fan. I never panic in May, but I will say this Red Sox, the setup guys leading up to Kimbrel have been kind of an Achilles heel, and now is a full-fledged crisis.
Good to talk to you. We'll talk again during the playoffs, okay? We'll talk during the series. So we'll let the series get a couple of games in, and we'll chat.
Mike, good to have you back.
My pleasure. Thanks, Bill.
All right.
Bill Simmons. Of course, you know where to find him on his podcast and everywhere else. So good. We'll chat with him. We'll get a couple of games into the series, and then we'll let him talk about his beloved Celtics. I would have loved to have him on if the Yankees had come back and beaten the Red Sox from 4-0, which they easily could have done last night, except for that ball that skimmed the wall on the way out. Hey, once in a while they got to get one that goes their way too. It happens. Back after this.